and welcome to Be On the Stage. My name is Ali Lopiano Hasty. I'm the social media manager here at Livermore Valley Arts, and today I'm here with Chris Carter,
Hey, everybody.
who is our host and executive director. Today we spoke with Jason Lyle Black, who will be coming to the Bankhead Sunday, May 12th, and we had a great chat with him today.
We sure did. He was a lot of fun, and I personally cannot wait to see him. I think we should, uh, get the audience ready for him and ask them to come up with some really difficult words to spell on the stage. So maybe we should encourage people to do that and to be prepared
Well,
when he's
he's a
engaged with the
local
audience.
Livermore.
He
He's a
is.
Livermorean
He's a Livermorean, Livermorian. So he
and a
had
spelling bee champion. So
and a
that's what you'll
spelling
learn
bee
about.
champion, and we talked about his favorite places to hang out in Livermore and some other things. So I think this will be kind of a special podcast when we bring one of these great artists back home.
Yes, it's very exciting. His podcast is amazing to listen to. We highly encourage you continue to listen through the whole interview because we actually learn things differently than other podcast interviews before.
Yeah. So lots of surprises, but I thought it was really fun. So thanks
Yeah.
for helping us out, Ali, and we're really grateful for Jason's time too. He was a real treat to talk to.
Go over it.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time with us,
Absolutely.
Jason. And by the way, we've met before. My name's Chris. I'm the
Yeah.
executive director. When you
Yeah, I
performed
remember
last,
meeting you at the we had there was a little VIP thing or
yeah,
something for the
yeah, we did
show,
a meet and greet or
right?
something. Yeah, it's
Yeah, Mike Ferrucci was there. Is he? I know he was involved with Rotary. Is he also connected with Bankhead directly, or was that just from Rotary?
you know what he did. He's mostly with Rotary, but we had an exhibit last year in our gallery, and it was a guitar exhibit. And I don't
Okay.
know if you know his guitar collection. So about 80% of the guitars in the exhibit were his.
Cool.
And he helped us curate it. He got all this other cool stuff. It was really fun. So if you're into, I don't know if you know, if you're into guitars,
Oh, I see. You got.
yeah, it's a pretty cool exhibit. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
still
I don't
connected
really
with him.
play, but I mean, it was funny because I remember he came out to me and he's like, "Jason, Michael Ferrucci, you probably don't remember me." I'm like, "Dude, I bought my first guitar from you." Like, I don't really play, but I bought one in high school from him, and I think I still have it. So of course I remember him, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, he's a great guy.
that's
We should get him to come out to the show then.
absolutely.
And then this is Allie, who's here on the call with us, and she's our social media coordinator, and she's going to put the video on the podcast together. And if
Right.
I miss anything as far as questions, she's going to chime in and ask you some things as well. I got to ask, in Nashville, is like half the people in your neighborhood professional musicians, or are you like the only one?
My next door neighbor, right across the street, a good friend of mine, he plays on Broadway. He's a guitarist down on
Hmm.
local Broadway. Um, Around the rest of them, not the ones I know like right around me,
Hmm.
but last neighborhood I lived in was very music creative heavy. The number of tattoos and beards and stuff per capita. I like to joke like it's very fun, very creative kind of neighborhood. You
Yeah,
go to all the coffee shops and stuff. And dogs too. It's like the highest. All of
yeah,
that. I moved out of there to this neighborhood because, well, real estate. I own my house now, so I'd wanted to get into home ownership, and you know how it is. Sometimes the most kind of popular young creative neighborhoods can be the most expensive to
yeah.
actually try to own anything in. So, yeah, but no, I mean, loads of my friends. I've got. I mean, Nashville's a really fun place for that. I've got so many. Not really anybody else like me here.
Yep.
That more probably your New York and LA where maybe, Oakland or something where you'd have piano types, but a lot of country, friends, obviously a lot of pop songwriters. So whenever I'm actually here and get to see them, which of course can be sometimes not very often.
Yeah, but that must be cool to be in a community where it's just so many great and talented people. Just kind of does that give you a little bit of extra incentive or fuel to be creative yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I literally, you have Uber drivers that you end up following on Instagram because they'll be taking you to the airport. And turns out just started a booking agency or they're a producer or something. I went to like it's just the everyday people.
Yeah,
Everyone has some kind of tie really or interest in it, and yeah, I went to hear a buddy of mine do a DJ set at a bar a couple weeks ago, and the bouncer, as I walked in, was like, "Oh, you must be a musician." I'm like, "How did you know?" But I was wearing a t-shirt that had Sweetwater, the music company on it. He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah." So it's just, yeah, it's kind of fun that anywhere you kind of go, and um, yeah, it's a nice place. So it's very friendly. It's a lot, a lot of people I know here, including some pretty big kind of power players that moved here from LA and New York. People come here because of the community, because it's a kind
Hmm.
of you know, yeah, it's very friendly. It's a little bit
Yeah.
more of a welcoming small town feel than you're going to have in the other, the biggest music cities like
Yeah.
New York and LA. So
Kind of like Livermore, right?
yeah, no, it does. I mean, honestly, it kind of has that. Like, it's people know each other. You kind of, you have local businesses you feel a tie to. Um, I've gotten a bit involved in the community too. Like I was the election volunteer. Done the things,
Hmm.
read, you sign up the voters and stuff. There's just little ways of, yeah, kind of getting connected. And I want one thing I want to do is start performing in town, which I haven't really done that yet.
Yeah.
But there's some new things in the works. The next year or two, I'm going to be doing a lot more, I think, in town. So it's just, it's the journey. There's always
That's
something new.
that's great. Well, I know for people that are going to listen to this podcast, maybe you might want to explain you do have a connection to Livermore. They might
Yes,
may not know. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
absolutely. So born and raised in Livermore. Yep, born there. Graduated Granada High School. I'm the youngest of four siblings. All four of us graduated from Granada. My parents both graduated from Livermore High. So long time Livermore roots. My dad moved to Livermore when he was 9. So my grandpa had been at Sandia Labs, and then my dad also had a career at Sandia. So sad for the Sandia. I sort of jumped that. I did actually do a little internship there in high school, but that was before, I got into music for a living. So, yeah. But my parents, they've moved out of state in retirement, but yeah, but a long time ties to the Bay Area, and grew up, as we were talking about. I had a music scholarship from the local Rotary Club, and
Hmm.
helped support scholarships that help support my some summer music training that I did. And yeah, I have a lot of wonderful memories. Randy Watson, is of course a longtime music educator in Livermore schools, and he was one of my band directors for many years, but also studied privately with him for a long time. And Mary Beth Cheney was my piano teacher in Livermore. And yeah, I mean, that's home, and still many friends there. Excited to be back, and of course, I just loved that. That first show that I did out there was so fun. It was
Yeah.
such a thrill. So
Yeah, you had a great crowd. When you come to Livermore, like or when you were growing up, do you had a favorite hangout or a place you'd like to go or anything like that?
that's a that's a fun question. I mean, I do kind of remember. I think it's still there. That movie theater on like Vine.
Hmm.
Like, was it First
Yeah,
and
the
Vine?
Vine Cinema.
Yeah, I feel like
Yep.
that survived a lot of changes to downtown, and it's still
Yeah,
there, isn't
it's
it?
still there.
Because that was, and then of course the bowling alley, which trying to remember, that was right around the corner from the high school.
Hmm.
Granada Bowl, was it? Is that
Granada
right?
Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's still there.
Um, used to go there. I remember one of the big things I remember is, the summer reading program with the public library. When I was a kid, I did it every year. In fact, I think I still remember Mrs. Casamager, if I remember right, was the librarian. I think she's retired for years now. But yeah, I remember doing that from the time I was a little kid all the way up, and you'd always get these cool prizes. You got the free pizza and the bowling and all that stuff. Um, and I think I ended up working for the library, or like, the high school tutor or something at the library. I can't remember what it was. They had some thing where you could put books away. Anyway, yeah, I mean, different things, swim lessons at May Nissen. I don't know if that's still around. May Nissen, that was over
Allie might know.
the swimming pool. Um, I mean,
Yeah,
we
it's
went and
still
played,
there.
still there. Yeah, I went and played. So I played trumpet, as well. That's how I,
Yeah.
was in band and stuff with for years and years, and played at Wente Vineyards. We do all the different. I mean, solo and ensemble. The music festivals at Livermore High. So even though, I went to Granada, but I played at Livermore a lot because that's where we'd have the evening concerts, with the different kind of jury things you did in
Yeah.
high school. I remember doing the Livermore, was it the Amador Symphony kind of the competition. Did a concert actually, First Presbyterian Church. When I was in high
Yeah.
school with some of my friends from Granada, we put on a fundraiser there to raise money for tsunami relief. So, yeah, I guess most most of the things I remember are music oriented as opposed to like, oh yeah, my just like stomping ground. But since I was 15, that's basically all I did
Yeah.
was work on music.
When
So.
so when did you start playing the piano? And was that's always been your primary instrument? You just said you played the trumpet too, but when did you play the piano?
Yeah, I started piano in third grade, private with private lessons, and so I was about 8 years old. And then I did a brief stint on viola for fourth grade at Sunset because you could start orchestra, and then they started band at fifth grade, and I switched to trumpet, switched to band.
Yeah.
And then yeah, studied all the way. It was the only year I didn't do band was my senior year at Granada because I was focused so much on my songwriting on the piano now that I
Yeah.
had to quit band to just dedicate all my time to that. But um, yeah, I mean piano and trumpet really were both my primary instruments, honestly, growing up. As I said, I studied with Randy Watson for a long time, and then I studied with Jay Rosetto, who he was, I think it was Cal State, was it Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which I think has been renamed now. I
Yeah.
can't remember. Either CSU Hayward originally, and then anyway, yeah, I studied with him. I studied also briefly on piano, as I mentioned. So Mary Beth Cheney was my teacher, but Roy Bogus, who was at Holy Names College in Berkeley, well, he, anyways, go to
Yep.
Berkeley to study with him. But yeah, I think it was more when I left high school and kind of the piano sort of ended up really becoming, I guess, the primary because that was my tool for composing. And I say songwriting, I've always been a more instrumental writer. So, I mean, composing, but I guess more what we'd call that. But yeah, I'm getting back into the trumpet actually. So, I mean, I can tell you guys, I'm
Are
planning
you
on,
gonna bring it? You're gonna bring it
yeah,
in
I plan
May?
on pulling the trumpet out on stage at the Bankhead. So it'll be kind of a fun little
Oh, cool.
surprise moment. I don't put it in any of my billing yet. I kind of keep it as like
Yeah.
a stage surprise, but yeah, I didn't do that last time. This is kind of a new thing. In fact, I literally was
Okay.
practicing this morning because I'm getting my chops rebuilt, and I've got a big national tour coming up in September of this year, and the trumpet's going to be, I want to play it on at least two or three songs in that show.
Yeah.
And some kind of cool moments, and so yeah, this is. Yeah, anyway, I'll be kind of
Well,
returning to some of those roots.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, and if you need a guitar too, let me know. We'll get you
Yeah.
a guitar or a viola. And then so and you started in the third grade. Did you take to it right away, or were you like any other kid who didn't want to do their last? Like, did you really enjoy it right from the start, and just you're like, this is for me, or did you fight it a little bit?
I think I did enjoy it. I don't have any memories of hating piano and wanting to quit or anything like that. I will say, it wasn't my primary focus when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that's something that's interesting. And sometimes, people see me do a concert and they think, oh, okay, you must have been playing with orchestras when you were 9 years old, like some of my friends that, are in our industry. And that wasn't the case for me. I was the spelling bee champion, which I think I remember the Independent did a story on me when I came for the Bankhead last time, and I think they talked about it. But that was really my big focus when I was younger because I had won. I won every school spelling bee I ever did. So from fourth grade
Wow.
at Sunset through eighth grade at Mendenhall, I won all 5 years.
That's not in
And
your bio. You might want to add that.
yeah,
That's a pretty cool fact.
it's I talk about it on stage, but yeah, I don't think I ever put it. It would be an interesting thing to put in the bio. That's actually not a bad idea because it's
We're
an intriguing thing. And I won the I mean I was kind of a hometown celebrity growing up, and I talk about that in the shows. But I won the Contra Costa Times Spelling Bee or whatever the regional one. I think at the time it was always sponsored by the Contra Costa Times, and that sent me to Washington D.C. for the Scripps Howard National Spelling Bee. So I
Oh,
went there
wow.
seventh and eighth grade, and in sixth grade I got like third place or something in the regional. So they sent me to what was essentially a consolation competition, consolation B, and Rohnert Park, and I ended up winning that. So I got anyway. It was kind of funny because yeah, growing up in middle school, I was always being interviewed by like. I remember the San Francisco Chronicle. I went on, there was like a Channel 30 or something. It was a local
Yeah.
TV news growing up. I got invited there, school board meetings and stuff to get all this stuff because of the spelling bee. Because it was, I think I might have been the first one, from Livermore to go
Yeah.
to Washington D.C. But yeah, so that was really actually my main focus, and the piano and the trumpet and all these things they kind of fit in. But it was really, I think, when I got into high school and kind of came out of that era of life that music then took over. And the honest truth is that that's probably part of why I'm the musician I am today, is because of all that brain training.
I was just going to say, do you use the same part of your brain? Is that, you think that's where that comes from?
I absolutely. I mean, there
Yeah.
is. I'm getting into learning about this stuff. I've read a lot about the brain in the last couple of years about neuroscience, and I have, I can tell you a bit. I have a whole education side of my career now with teaching. I've over 100,000 people that follow me specifically to learn piano now
Yep.
online. That's a totally new thing, and it's happened about the last year. And I use sort of these, neuroscience methods to kind of fast track your brain learning with the piano. But I do think that what happened is, we they see in research that there is a lot of similarity between things like math and memorization and
Yep.
certain types of analytical thinking and music. And I think for me, I built the memory cells in my brain, or I don't, but however an actual neuroscientist would talk about that. But I built that up so heavily when I was, 11, 10, 11, 12, from studying spelling words to compete with that, that as I got into music, I mean, I'm not kidding. I can still, you play a song for me that I played on the piano like 20 years ago, and if I hear like two or three bars of it, I can sometimes play the entire song, even
Yeah.
though I haven't heard it, let alone played it in 20 years, because it's just locked in. And I think that, again, I mean, that is a thing I know, from neuroscience research, like it is a muscle. It's not a muscle, but it's, as you build it, the what do you call it, neuroplasticity, like it builds, and your ability to recall things faster and more comprehensively. That's kind of a very known, proven thing. So anyway, but yeah, that's where it was kind of once the spelling, once that side, because you age out of it obviously once you leave middle school. Once that left, then I kind of really got into it. But all that said, I mean, from what I understand, I was, a standout
Yeah.
student, early
Can
on
can I
in.
ask, like, how do you study for a spelling bee? Do you just like, do you have the dictionary with you all the time and you're just looking at big words, or what do you, I can't even imagine how you would prepare yourself for that. Or are there like certain patterns, or the English language is weird. So you must, I don't know. How do you do that?
That's a great question. So, the short answer is that for local and even regional competitions, they give you word lists to study. So the Scripps Company had a book called Paideia. I still have my old books, and it was every year they published this Paideia booklet, and it had, I don't know, 5,000 words or
Yeah.
something in it that would be the basis for all of the school competitions and like the local, more regional level competitions. So again, I mean, I had a tape recorder, and I'd come home from school and I would record all the words. I'd say the word, I'd spell it out, and then I'd move on to the next one. And I did this for hours. I'm not kidding. You don't just win the spelling bee because you just show up and think you're going to. Like, I was, super dedicated at this. And I mean, early on, it was not super intense, but once I sort of got to the Washington, D.C. that first year, then I found out about the sort of national grade training. And that came from people who had been, competitors, and won national bees and so forth. They would develop lists of words for people to study. And I remember buying one of their like toolkits. And I mean, we're talking about, 20,000 words that nobody would ever hear of, you would never use again for the rest of your life. Like, but I would study that, and that's
Yeah.
how I ended up placing so high that final year, because I did get to, I think my final year I got out, I want to say it was around 5 or 6, which is pretty far because a lot of people are eliminated in the first couple rounds in the national competition. So I ended up placing 16th. It was like a nine-way tie for 16th out of
Wow.
250 people, I think. The first year, I think I made it to round 4 and got tied for 64th in like a 30-way tie or something like that. Because again, I mean, tons of people drop each round. Although I will say, I think since then, I don't follow the spelling bee really anymore, but I think I noticed there was a year where nobody lost a word. So they had to have joint winners, because nowadays, like, kids are so smart that
Yeah. So
nobody misses.
what was your word? What did you lose on?
I
Can you
lost the
spell it
first
now?
year, it was Noctilucent.
Okay.
And the second year it was Palilalia. And
Okay.
both times I lost on the sound. So you were also commenting, the English language is very complex. I would study Latin and Greek roots. So I had like, I remember there was a book I got of, Latin and Greek roots, and you'd study that so that when you'd hear a word that you didn't know, you had some sort of reasoning for how to get into it. And, I will say I do speak Spanish. I took 4 years
Yeah.
of Spanish at Granada, and then, I had a lot of experience using Spanish language, and I've traveled extensively now in South America. And having that background in language, the English language, it's made it a lot easier. I can read a little bit of French. I don't speak French technically, but I can, because it's so similar to Spanish. Same thing with Italian. I can kind of understand
Yeah.
sometimes what somebody might be saying. And anyway,
Can you spell those words now? Like if I asked you to spell, what is it, noctilucent?
noctilucent. It's funny because I'll be like, which one's the correct and
Just
which
go
one's
ahead
the
and do
wrong
it.
one? I think it was Noctilucent, and I spelled it Nocta,
Okay.
Noctilucent. And then Palilalia, that one I remember, it's Palilalia, and I spelled it Palo. And again, see the schwa, that sound, that's what it's indeterminate because there are so many different correct ways that a
Okay.
word would use that sound. And that's what ultimately got me. But I'm
Well,
sure that I said
when you were a kid, did your like parents come home and say, "Hey, Jason, put the book down, go outside, get some sun"? Like, or were they pretty supportive of your spelling
it's
endeavors?
it's funny because yeah, I mean you do. I think my parents really let me just kind of roll with it. It wasn't like they were pushing me into the spelling bee. I think I was the only one of my siblings that did anything like that. I think they were kind of just like, yeah, cool, and um, I mean, I went through a lot of time where I was kind of like, because you do get forever branded as the kid that won the spelling bee, and when you're 12, that might seem kind of cool, and then you get to be like 15, and you're just like, oh my gosh, because everybody knows you forever as the spelling bee kid. I mean, everybody knew my name at Granada High School because
Yeah.
if they'd gone to Mendenhall because of that. And so I think, in a way, the piano kind of became a redemption, like for me, if you will, because it's kind of a nerdy thing. Like, I mean, it's not like I totally regret it or anything, but it's a nerdy thing to spend that much time, as you do
Yeah.
on spelling. But I was so good at the piano, and so that's kind of what actually drove me into music as heavily as I was, especially in the entertainer
Yeah.
side, where like I started playing the piano backwards, when I was in high school and doing those little kind of shticks and stuff that I would do. And I think a lot of that was kind of a reaction to like, okay, I've been sort of like the nerdy kid. Now I want to try to be like the cool kid a bit, and
Your
you play
second
piano,
act.
and
That's
everybody
cool.
likes that. So
So it's not, I'm gonna guess you've never had stage fright, right? If you've been able to do the spelling bees and
yeah, not
all
so
that other
much. I
stuff.
would say that's not really been. I mean, I would have nerves about the music itself. I remember a time I was playing trumpet outside Mendenhall in seventh grade, and I guess I was so nervous or something that I couldn't produce a note with the trumpet. And Mr. Watson, he was so kind. He just said, "Hey, we're having technical difficulties. We'll be back in a minute." Took me back in the band room, and I don't know, help me get out over it and get because the trumpet. I mean, yeah, and I was a new player, obviously. The
Yeah.
muscle memory still wasn't as developed, but yeah, since that time in seventh grade. I don't know that I've ever really had I had one or two little times, even as a professional performer. I think I had a time a couple, can't remember how many years ago now it's been, but I think I forgot the end of like a Chopin or Clair de Lune, one of those pieces I was playing. So I just improvised the ending. And I don't think anybody would have noticed, except maybe the one, person in the audience that is like that is a classical connoisseur might recognize it, but that's the fortunate thing.
Like when do you watch live performances at all? Like if you watch somebody else play the piano, are you like nervous for them or because you kind of know what they have to do and what's coming? Because I've talked to other artists that are really proficient and they have a hard time watching people perform music that they perform because they're feeling their stress. Do you feel that sometimes?
I will. It's funny because I sometimes will feel that with my girlfriend, only because so she is such a marvelous singer, and I mean she's really highly trained, and and so when she'll be tackling like Think of Me, which is like one of the songs that she does a lot on stage, and they got that high B flat. She's a soprano, so she can pretty effortlessly pop out that high B flat, but like. I think it's more for me on like that personal level. So, when I see it's less of like, oh, I'm nervous for another musician. It's more like, yeah, if it's one of my friends, and even though I know they can do it, or like I watch them, I got a lot of stand-up comedian friends, and I'll sometimes be the one laughing the hardest. I mean, just rolling on the ground in the back of the room, and I'm just rooting for, everybody else obviously to get as into
You're
them as
trying,
I am.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
truth is, sometimes, yeah, when you have a personal connection, whether to the singer or the comedian to the performer, you're an easier audience because you already
yeah.
like them. So everything's funny. So I would say it's more that way for me. Yeah, not specific to a pianist, but I do sometimes like get back there and you're just like, all right, come on. And then I'm also the most excited when they kill it. Like my
Yeah.
girlfriend, she's British, so she can't come on tour with me all the time. We don't have all the visas and that sort of thing, for that yet. But I have popped her on a few shows when she's been in the US, and it's just like it's so cool to, get that reaction with the audience. And when I should say, when I'm coming to the Bankhead, I do have somebody coming with me. That is my drummer, Brandon,
Hmm.
who's here in Nashville, and amazing player. I'm really excited to have him. So I will have a special guest for the show with live drums on
That's
stage.
great. Well, so you're touring, you're arranging, you're composing, you got a girlfriend in England, and at the same time, I see you do all these YouTube videos, and you're pretty popular online. And I saw this video of you. The one I saw the most views was this you and this girl playing Frozen backwards.
Uh-huh.
How she's not your sister, is she really your sister? Because it said
She's
siblings
not.
or something. Okay,
That was like a skit, like staged. But yeah,
yeah,
that was my most viral YouTube video. And that one, it's been quite a few years now, but yeah, that's kind of the most popular one I've ever released for YouTube. And it was right in the height of, when Frozen was really big. So I had this idea because actually what came about with that was I saw her had I saw a viral video of her playing behind her back, and it was so unique
yeah.
because very few people do that. A lot of people will do the upside down thing that I also do, but the behind the back. And so I reached out to her and was like, we should do something together because, this would be really kind of funny to have two of us doing this. And then when we got together, to chat, I just kind of noticed, I'm like, we could be siblings. Like we just kind of looked a lot alike, similar vibe, mannerism, so forth. So that's sort of what generated that idea. And I kind of knew that concept would resonate with people. So that got a lot of popularity. It actually landed me my first publishing deal with Hal Leonard, which,
Okay,
administers the music of Disney.
yep.
So that was 2015. And then I did a video with my grandparents, and that is my actual grandparents. That's my mom's parents that they
The
did live
up
in
video.
for a period of time. And you've
Yeah.
probably seen that video too. And I actually use that on stage a lot. It's just kind of a fun moment to share them. And so that landed me another publishing opportunity for that song. And then, yeah, since then I've had obviously a lot more on the more recent time scale. My most viral stuff has been video games on YouTube. So I had during COVID, I put out a cover of the Call of Duty Zombies theme from Black Ops Zombies. And that song, it's got well over 1 million views on YouTube. I think it's the most popular now version of that song on YouTube. Now I've got it on Spotify as well. And then due to that, I did a lot more video game music. And the Doom franchise, which is basically really intense metal music. So
Yep.
this Call of Duty song is a piano song. The Doom music is not at all, nothing like it. Well, I would take the most popular songs from Doom and turn them into classical piano. And that got really popular as well. I have about 500,000 views on one of those songs, and it's fun to read the comments when people are like, this is what the demons, hear when they die, the sounds of all this stuff. It's
Is
kind of
that
fun to read that.
has that kind of that's like opened up your fan base, I bet, quite a bit. I mean, you got a lot more people knowing who you are now than maybe before you did that. I know this video game music industry is huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was on, so I did what was my second national U.S. tour just this last fall, and that was primarily concentrated in the Midwest, Canadian border down to Kansas, eastern Colorado over to Indiana, but big swath of the country. And at one point, I was doing a high school program in, I want to say it was Rugby, North Dakota, I think. And I'm doing my, 30 minutes of performance stuff, talking to the kids. It was a general high school
Yeah.
audience. And then at one point, and obviously some of them really enjoy it. Some kids are not that into piano, whatever. But then towards the end of the program, somebody said, "Oh, can you play any video game music?" And I was like, "Can I play any video game music?" So I pull up because I always have my projection on stage. So I pull up the video from Call of Duty, and I was like, hey, and I was like, yeah, I've actually done this song from Call of Duty. And it's the second the video hit the screen, they didn't even play it. The second the video, there was this rush around the room as like a dozen
Oh
kids
my gosh.
recognized me as the from the video. Now this video was like 3 years old now by this
Yeah.
time. But they were like, "That's you!" Got so excited. So that show just finished with just like a bang because they had been watching me play, and it wasn't until that video popped up, and they were like, "You're the Call of Duty guy that did that song," and they were so excited.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool.
to answer your question, it's fun because I have got to that point now where you just get recognized for, they might not know the face because like I don't show my face in that video, but they know the music,
They know the
and
music. Are
yeah, and
you a
I'm absolutely
gamer?
doing
Do
more and
you,
stuff still with that,
do
but
you
yeah.
play video games? Are you a gamer at all?
The short answer to that
Oh,
is I don't have time, which
fair
anybody
enough.
understands.
Yeah.
And there are some games I've kind of wanted to get into. My my indulgence in it has been more limited to watching kind of gameplay and just enjoying. Like, I mean, I do have quite a few gamer friends, and we love to sit, that's part of how I discover a lot of this music. They're like, dude, have you listened to this, this game? And sometimes, talking for hours about the best video game music. Um, I do, so I have certain games that I really like a lot because I like to watch the gameplay. I really did enjoy Doom and the world of Doom that
Yeah.
they created. And Mick Gordon, the composer for Doom, is an absolute genius. I love what his creativity with creating such a dark and dystopian kind of sound, or maybe that's not the right word, but I mean just really intense, different kind of energy that I then transfer to piano. And that those sheets have all been published now, by the way, which was really cool. I was able to get publisher approval to do that kind of stuff, so those are now available. But yeah, I mean, I hope someday, but I think like a lot of people that you have, I know the Bankhead brings everybody from major stars to kind of more up and coming national, in that category. But I think you get to that point in your career where you don't even have time to stop and breathe, and that's where my life has been like that the last about 8 months. I also have as I said, a huge viral following on Instagram now, which is all
Yeah.
for education, totally different type of viral content. And I posted a video late last night. I think it's already 20,000 views today, and the difference with that now, the short form Instagram and TikTok, you've got to post constantly. It's not like YouTube where you're posting maybe every week or every couple of
Yeah.
weeks. It's almost every day, so it's a lot. But you
Do
know
you like keep a list of ideas of things that I'm going to do, or how do you know what you're going to record and post?
I do. A lot of it's more a mental list.
Yeah.
I'm one of Yeah, I don't have a lot of written lists, but I have in mind a lot of ideas, and the biggest thing is trying to it's like schedule management now, and that's one of the interesting things, for me, where I've always done figuring out how to make sure that you have to schedule yourself time in the studio. You have to schedule yourself, you kind of have to, instead of just going as you come, like, oh, I want to record this today, I feel like it, like creating a content bank now, so I have a ton of pre-recorded videos, so I have stuff ready
Mhm.
to go. that's it's kind of like managing the logistics of it, if that makes sense. Same way that
Yeah.
tour. I mean, I played this tour I talked about. It was 24 concerts in 35 days in like 11 states. So I mean, the travel logistics of that was insane. Um, and so that's a big part of it. And of course, I have a tour manager now that helps with a lot of
Yeah.
that, does hotel booking, all that sort of thing. But still, just figuring out how do you get enough merchandise from one town
Yeah.
to another.
Well, let
Anyway.
me ask, when you're home, do you have to like take a break, or do you still play the piano every day, or what do you spend time with when you're at home?
I definitely do take a break from playing. You just need you need a break.
Yeah.
I love, well, actually, so kind of fun fact. Yeah, I've gotten into real estate just a little bit. As I mentioned, now first time homeowner, and I Airbnb. So I have, folks, I'm in a major tourist, hub here in Nashville. So I have, and I've got obviously a local, company that helps with that, the cleaning and stuff as I'm gone, and things. But yeah, I really enjoy, that's one of the kind of like recharge things for me. I actually
Yeah.
love to clean a house. I love to clean a bathroom. I know it's the kind of thing that most people hate. I enjoy it. It's so different. I love mowing lawns. I love that. Um,
Oh, so that could be like a second business for you,
yeah, exactly. Start.
right?
I haven't had to mow my lawn obviously in months with the winter, but it's funny. But that is actually one of the biggest recharges for me. Is you get off of being on the road and you come home and it's time to clean the garage or it's time to I repainted I bought the house, repainted
Yep.
bathrooms and doing the furniture and Airbnb is it's a lot more work up front than people think, to creating a guest experience. I mean, it's hospitality. I'm a hotelier basically, and so you're figuring out, all the little touches with, I have little white noise machines in the bedrooms because I live near the airport. So somebody hears the sound of airplanes and so forth. You got all these different kinds of things that you do to make sure it's a comfortable, experience for people. And
Well,
yeah, so that's kind of the recharge.
I've actually never been to Nashville, and my wife's been a couple times, and it's like on my list especially as a music lover. Like I've been
Yeah,
wanting to do it. So I'm gonna send me a link to your Airbnb, and we'll try and make a plan to come and stay out there.
absolutely.
Yeah, I
I'll
would
let you
love to
know.
do
That'd
that.
be great.
That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. I was thinking too when you're talking about the video games, if you want to get like people my age, like you could arrange some like Pac-Man or maybe Mario Brothers or something like that. That would really pull in all the 40 and 50 somethings. So maybe think about that for the next series of video game arrangements that you do.
I've I have a Zelda one. It appeared in the Super Smash Brothers games, which of course that was my kind of my generation time. But the
Yeah.
Zelda, I mean, started I know kind of before me, I
Oh
think.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to do more. In fact, I have now. I'd recently been buying a bunch of, I call them toys, but the IRS calls them business expenses, because they're basically production gear, right? So I've got all sorts of lights and stuff for doing. Basically, I'm going to get back into the video game stuff, and I don't know if you've seen again the more recent stuff I've done with that. I've got a fog machine and really cool lighting, and I'm building that out now. So I've got more
Yeah.
lighting and new camera and stuff to be able to capture because the focus for me now with my shows and where I'm going is to make things more and more immersive.
Yep.
And so I kind of started a little bit more in the comedic and the shtick side of making the piano fun and engaging to a wider audience, and that's great. And that's kind of where I started out, but I've definitely evolved as an artist a little bit away from the backwards piano kind of being like my thing. And yeah, it's still fun, and I still do it because I know people expect it and they want to see it, and I enjoy what people get a kick out of. But you'll remember I brought like my camera when I came to Bankhead before. I had
Yep.
the piano, and I take when I'm going, in general, I take my full projection setup. I do play some places that don't have, state of the art theater projection systems and so forth. So I've got it all self-contained. I can take. And basically, what I'm doing, yeah, is looking for more and more ways to make the piano a visual experience and not just a musical
Yeah.
experience. I want people to be able to enjoy watching the concert just as much as they enjoy listening to the concert. And that's part of what's reflected too in the way I do my video content with whether YouTube or Instagram, and so forth. I really want people in, the action and to have it feel like it's interesting visually. And in fact, one of my other biggest hobbies and passions now is I'm kind of like a cinemaphile, but specifically with more like cinematography. So I'm not necessarily into the latest movies that are just, oh, blockbuster hit. It's the really compelling cinematographers because
Yeah.
I love to study how, like Stanley Kubrick or Christopher Nolan, like how did they use the shot to pull us in? How did they tell a story? I watched Scarface, last week, like,
Yeah.
gangster classic. And I noticed so many little things that a lot of people probably don't notice about how they framed the shots to tell these kind of Shakespearean, tragedy that was underlying this whole story. And it was really, really interesting.
Well,
So
that's your next series of videos, right? You're going to be there's your future content is teaching us what to look for in cinematography too.
that could be. I mean,
Like never
that's it.
ending.
That's definitely a passion for me, and I
Yeah.
want like shows, and I think audiences, for folks that saw me before, the Bankhead coming back, or folks that didn't see me, for the first time, it's a much more immersive concert
Yep.
than I think people might expect because of, and that's where adding the drums now to my show, which that's now a standard part of my touring show is to have live drums on stage. I still have some backing orchestration, recorded, and then of course I have some solo piano moments and all that. But it's that visual energy. I even, sometimes I stand up at the piano now when I'm playing, which it's actually much harder to play that way, but it gives that visual energy
Yeah.
that I often feel with a drummer, and we get that kind of chemistry between us. And so yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out. In fact, I have a few videos. I'm going to send over to you guys some new footage I just got from a recent show that
Oh,
that might be
great.
fun for people to see,
Well,
kind of showcasing all this.
we can't wait. And I was going to ask you if the backwards piano thing was because of a bet or like you lost a bet or something. But I do want to ask you about like, so you have these great arrangements that you do and you teach about that. And like, do you have an approach to arranging music or how do you what's your process there?
That's a great question. And no, I'm fine. As you can tell, obviously, I have a lot to say. I know it's sometimes a pain to you have to edit it all down to
It's all
what people
right.
want to hear, but that's good as an artist. That's how we work, right? Yeah, the arranging process for me with my piano arrangements that are made for like mass market. So, and in fact, I brought them over because I can't remember if you're doing a video form of this too. This is my book that I play out of this every show because people love it.
Yep.
This is my best-selling product I've ever done, my Disney medleys for piano solo. And it had come out about a year and a half or so before I came to Bankhead, or maybe 2 years. It's gone on to sold over 10,000 copies. It's a bestseller nationally now and really kind of helped put me on the map. And then I did this one during COVID. So I won't be playing Christmas music in this show, but this is my Christmas book and that came out. And I've done others. Those are kind of my two most popular books. So those two books are both what I would call mass market in the sense that they're really designed for as broad a student base as possible, that you want
Yeah.
lots of people to be able to play them. And that's a little bit different than say if I'm arranging for my own performance, because obviously that's niche because not very many people could play the arrangements that I play on stage, right?
Yeah.
So they're a little bit different. When I'm going for like a performance arrangement, I'm thinking of how, of the audience, right? The audience is the people in the seats. What's going to be really, really cool? What's going to create a lot of contrast? I like to write, I'm inspired by Chopin and Rachmaninoff pretty heavily, who both used really big, heavy use of the bass on the piano and heavy use of large block chords, well, especially Rachmaninoff with that. But Chopin really used a lot of deep bass on the piano. And like the Chopin, I'm thinking of this one. I think it's the B flat. I forget the name of the piece, but it was one I played in high school. It's got a really wide range of sound, so he's using the top of the piano and the bottom of the piano heavily, and that creates a lot of contrast, and it makes the piece really interesting. Rachmaninoff had a lot of like kind of meat on the bones, so he used really big, thick chords and jumping up and down, but there was that thickness. Chopin was a little bit more kind of melodic, right? And they both had obviously a range and stuff. So I use a lot of that in performance writing because I want the big contrasts are really interesting for an audience to hear. It helps things stand out.
Yeah.
When I'm doing writing for a mass audience like students, you're essentially writing for piano students so that they can play it and enjoy it. Then the goal is actually to make the arrangement. For me, my goal is to make it as easy as possible while it still sounds really cool. So that actually sometimes poses a tougher challenge.
Oh,
You have to have more experience really to do that because you have to make it. And in fact, that's one of like if you go on Amazon, you look at my book, you'll see a lot of people will comment. They're like, these arrangements sound harder than they are, and they love that. Who doesn't want to sound like they're that good on the piano when you're a student, right? You want to have fun with it, and a lot of that comes down to little tiny motifs. Like I could get into nitty gritty of it, but you might use like, okay, if I use thirds here and go up and down, chromatic with the thirds, this particular fingering won't be too challenging for a new player, but it's going to sound so cool. Or maybe I just take this one little note and I pop this up an octave and I put a little decoration, do, up 2 octaves
yep.
higher. Those little touches aren't as common for maybe arrangers to do for beginners, and I put that kind of stuff in my books, and that's what gives it. It's that extra little spice, or you get the dessert and it's got the little drizzle of caramel sauce, on the side, right? It's that little thing that puts the smile on the person's face, and it's not that much harder to play, but it makes it sound like they're playing up here. And I think that's really why that Disney book has done so well, because there's a ton of Disney books out there, but it feels really fun
I
to
love that. That's like kind of like the guitar, there's a lot of little tricks you can do to that are just cool little flares and flashes, and they're not that hard. And
Yeah.
it's fun to be able to show off like that. So I think that's cool that you're thinking about that. Oh, and then you compose also your own music. And I was listening to the Preludes piano album the other day, and it's lovely, by the way. It's
Thank you.
yeah, it's so like relaxing. It's like really good, like on the road or after a long day to listen to that. What's your creative process there? Like when you're writing your own music, I mean, some people like go for walks, do you have your phone with you and you're just recording ideas all the time, or like how do you write?
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I get my ideas, I mean, like any creative, they can come unexpectedly. And I've been on stage doing a tech rehearsal, with a full band and had an idea. And so I just have to pop my phone out and take 5 seconds before they realize I'm not, I'm just to record it so I can come back to it later. I've got hundreds of, probably thousands of voice memos on my phone that I still haven't actually gone through of all these ideas. But yeah, I think that for me, a big part of what feeds creativity for me now actually is writing in different voices. So, and this is something that I don't have a lot of released per se yet because it's kind of, the new creative process I'm nurturing, but I like to write sometimes with like a synth or with a piano voice that's maybe mixed with like an ethereal string pad, or sometimes I'll write with like a piano with really cool reverb processing put on it where there's like this echo effect. And what happens is it's kind of like, if you're a painter that typically works with oils or something, and then you just try a different medium, and it actually challenges you to think in a new way because you can't do that, you can't keep going back to the same things. So that's a lot of the creative process for me now, because in terms of just writing on the piano, I can kind of just come up with ideas all day, and which is great. But I've been composing for piano for 20 years, and so now as I look at what's next and what's kind of really driving with my next album, which I'm hoping to work on an original album in the next year or two. But I do have this tour coming up again this fall, so it'll be probably the summer of 25 that I can really dive in and take an extended. You do have to pretty much take a hiatus from touring to do an album, and
Yeah,
everybody has to do that. So
absolutely.
um, but yeah, I think I do love to walk. I'm definitely a nature. I love hiking and backpacking. My grandpa, my grandpa Black, that was Livermore, was an avid hiker. Both my grandparents actually. They did Half Dome. I grew up hiking Half Dome. Going to Yosemite. I love time in nature. But coming back to what I was saying about film, I would say that film is actually one of my biggest inspirations. And I can sit there and I can rewatch The Shining over and over again because I'm so drawn in by the fact that with that Stanley Kubrick classic, they actually built that whole hotel on, I think, Pinewood Studios in England. The
Hmm.
entire thing, when the little boy goes around on his scooter, that's an entire set. And I am so blown away by that, by the level of production that has been done on certain films like this, that for whatever reason in my brain, when I see that that's real, this is a real thing, or I see some of the stunts that Christopher Nolan or Tom Cruise will do for Mission Impossible, and it's like that was real, he really drove off a cliff.
Yeah.
That fires some sort of musical creativity, even though it's not music. That's kind of what feeds me now. So I get a lot of my
Huh.
creativity, my creative inspiration, and that's why I go back to that idea of immersiveness, because when I get drawn into a film and kind of lose myself in this fantasy world, that I end up creating the soundtrack for what I'm feeling. That if
Yeah.
that
No, that helps. By the way, I like to ask people, what are they listening to right now? That's not your music. What are you into? Do you have any suggestions for us? Um,
Yes, this might surprise you. So some of the music I love to listen to the most is electronic dance music, actually.
that does surprise me, but keep
Mhm.
going.
Yeah, so it started with me. I call it. I went through a Skrillex phase. Skrillex, one of the big dubstep. I mean, kind of one of the founders of, I guess, modern dubstep. And then I sort of ended from there. I went into kind of drum and bass, and drum and bass music has this very specific do da do da do da da da. It's this very specific pattern that drum and bass has. And the music's popular in the U.S., but it's a little bit more kind of European, I think, in general, kind of culturally. Um, But when I was in high school, I always did kind of like, I mean, I kind of like techno and stuff, but it's more, I never really listened to it in my 20s and early 30s. But I don't know, it just sort of has become my thing. And, my girlfriend loves it. In fact, when we first met, that was one of the things we kind of connected over was our shared love of EDM music. But I really think that what's interesting is when you look at classical music, and you look at like Mozart, and you look at the mathematical sort of formulas essentially that they were following, and how, if I can remember the theory words, you had like the exposition and then the development and the recapitulation, these terms for how like a Mozart sonata was written.
Hmm.
Um, you see that in drum and bass music, that almost exactly. I mean, it's mathematical. It follows. You'll have like a 32 bar buildup, and they build, obviously in these 4 and 8 bar and 16 bar sequences, and they start building layer after layer after layer onto this music, and it's just so fascinating because it's actually to me almost like a modern classical music form, and so. Yeah, basically to answer your question, I tend to listen to a lot of electronic music now, as well as a lot of classical music. I actually listen to classical music more than probably ever before. I love to
Yeah.
listen to, symphonies and big stuff like that. Symphonies specifically, less like solo piano, but I love symphonic music. And then my other guilty pleasure is going to be bands like Muse. And,
Hmm.
you kind of, because again, you look at Muse and talk about classical influence of the use of the pipe organ in
Yeah.
their latest album and
They're
everything.
insanely talented.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's so rich. I do love classic rock. I love Queen. I love I actually, so in my show I'm doing Queen now. This new show I do obviously a lot of classical Broadway, the 100 hits show now that it draws in so much different kind of music. So I've got Paint It Black, from the Rolling Stones, and I've got Thunderstruck from AC/DC, and I've got Hotel California, and it's these really kind of again, I'm drawing on all these inspirations now. That's part of why I have to have live drums in my show because,
Yeah.
again, I love the drive of that beat and the texture that you can create with drums. And so it's not like what people maybe think. It's not a jazz combo show. It's not, I'm not doing that. I'm using the drums in a very symphonic, very theatrical way. So they're kind of, I do a lot of my own drum writing, even though I don't really play, but I write for drums,
Hmm.
and it's very much I'm trying to write almost a symphony as if you had 3 or 4 players and in the back of the symphony. That's what you got to do on drum set, so it's kind of
Wow. Okay. Well, now I'm really excited for your show, by the way. Allie, did we miss anything?
One question I have is I know that you have in the past done a live component where you compose a song live with the audience. And I was very curious if you use any of that composition live on stage to inspire your compositions later.
oh wow,
Good
that's a great
question.
question, and I feel like nobody's ever asked me that. I have not yet. It has fed my creative development definitely in terms of just like because it is a challenge. Yeah, so I have a thing, and I don't know, Chris, if you remember this, but yeah, I have a thing where I take 4 random notes from the audience and then I turn it into a piece and I let
Yeah.
them sort of set the tone and styling and everything. And sometimes I have to go to a fifth note because if it's not challenging enough, or doesn't sound funky enough, with 4 notes, then I ask for a fifth. And that's an audience favorite bit for sure in any setting I play in of as a performer. Um, yeah, I think I haven't ever. Yeah, it's sort of an interesting question. What if I were to release like the song on the spot album? You guys have given me some interesting
The greatest
thoughts,
hits.
ideas to think about because I haven't yet. But again, kind of going back to what I'm saying, I'm currently cooking up some new different things for how to yeah, how to do more with that on stage. And, I think in the coming years, I'm going to be doing a lot more live composing. I'd like to create a series on YouTube with that
Yeah.
because I think that would really be really compelling to people. And, I think if I was to sort of wrap up my thoughts on that, I'd say, the biggest challenge, and I'm sure a lot of other mid 30s, early 40s, musicians probably can relate to this. It's like, you're firing on so many cylinders all the time that it's like you have all of the ideas. It's just getting all of the time in. And so I have, my entire 24 is basically booked up, and half of 25. It's like, okay, here are the projects in the queue because my vision goes, all these years out of like, and now I'm finally bringing some of those things to life. I mean, I really am, and I'm thrilled to, like I said, be putting the trumpet, back on stage, drums and
Yep.
stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, but I love to compose. I mean, that's what I spent hours doing when I was in high school. I'd walk home, from Granada, and I'd be just recording songs on my first MP3 player that had a voice record feature, and and that's what I'd do. And I'd sit there and I'd listen to all those improv. They were all improvs, and I'd listen to them and I'd turn them into pieces. So yeah, that's anyway.
All right. You gave him some food for thought, Allie. Thank you. Jason, we're going to do one last thing if you're okay. I like to do a game with everybody that we interview for this podcast. It's super easy. I call it either or. So it's a way just to get to know you better.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a list of choices, two things, and you have to pick which one you prefer. And it's going to start out easy, and it might get a little bit more challenging towards the end, but we'll see. Are you
All
up for
right.
it?
Let's do it.
Easy. Okay. So the first one would be sunrise or sunset.
Sunset.
Sunset. Okay. Flying or driving.
Now driving. Used to be flying.
All right. TV or film.
Film.
Okay. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
More early riser in general.
Okay. But you like sunsets better, I notice.
Yeah. I'm creative at night, but I'd prefer to wake up early than stay up too late if I had to. Yeah.
That makes sense. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
iPhone. All right. Breakfast for dinner or dinner for breakfast?
Breakfast for dinner. Definitely.
Good choice.
Correct answer.
Facebook or Twitter or X?
Oh, Facebook.
Facebook.
I hate Twitter.
Okay.
That's a hard pass.
All right. Easy questions so far. It's going to get harder here. Ninjas or pirates?
Ninjas.
All right. Good answer. Classical music or I change this up a little bit here. Classical music or EDM?
These did get harder. I feel like I'm letting somebody down, either one. This isn't like the eye doctor where you can say, I think about the same?
It's up to you. There's no wrong answer.
Oh, I mean,
usually there's no wrong answer.
Right now, if I had to say, I'd say classical, but it's like, yeah, that's a very tough.
All right, fair enough. And this is also based on the interview here. Rachmaninoff or Chopin?
I'm sorry, Chopin, but I'm gonna have to pick Rachmaninoff as my favorite.
Rachmaninoff. All right. Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Ooh, on a See, I kind of have to go with the Stones because I just love Paint It Black that much.
Wow.
And I'm voting on one song off of that one song, but I love it that much.
That is a great song. You're the first one ever to say the Rolling Stones, by the way. So
really?
good for you. Good for you.
Okay.
Major key or minor key?
Minor, hands down.
Minor. All right. The book or the movie?
Again, I'm going to make a controversial claim, and I'm going to say the movie because, yeah.
Okay. Fresh cut grass smell or new car smell?
I know I said I love mowing lawns, but I'll take the new car smell.
Okay.
Smell.
All right, we're almost done here. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
All right. Good answer. Arranging or composing?
Composing. Yeah,
right.
at the end of the day, that comes completely from you. So
I love it. Okay. And last one, Livermore on May 12th, which is when you're going to be in Livermore or anywhere else in the world.
Livermore on May 12th. Hands down. Yep.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to having you come back home to Livermore, and I think you're going to have a great audience, and so glad you could join us, and congratulations on all your success and everything. And we're going to keep following your career. And I'll let you know about the Airbnb when we come out to Nashville. All right, you're off the hook.
All right, well,
nice
thanks again,
you.
guys.
Yeah,
and,
have a great trip.
We'll see you in a few months. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
He had a lot of good answers.
He did. He was he's very emphatic.
He was very what?
Emphatic.
Emphatic.
He
What
should
did
spell it
you?
for us.
Well, that's what I didn't know. I was curious. We kind of went off into this direction with the spelling bee, but I was so curious because I've never met a spelling champion. Like, how do you prepare for the spelling bee? I kind of figured maybe there was some sort of a guidebook or different strategies, but I don't know. It's nothing that my family has ever been involved with because we're not naturally very good spellers. So it was nice to hear about that from him.
Well, you can tell that he has a very strong background in just education. I know he was an
Yeah.
accountant. That math science side of his brain really helps him to compartmentalize and process all of these amazing musical ideas. So it's really cool to hear that from him and get to know a different side of him than just as the showman.
Yeah, he's obviously a very nice person and a very smart person and just all these great qualities and creative. And I could have with him for hours, I think.
Yeah, I listened to
Yeah.
a couple other podcasts and he definitely can talk, but it's all really interesting. It's
Yeah.
engaging. And I think he'll be the same way on our stage with our audience at the
Yeah.
Bankhead. I think he's going to be exceptionally engaging. And he's got a sense of humor, which is great.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us today for Beyond the Stage. We had a great chat with Jason Lyle Black today, who is a local Livermore native. We hope that everyone comes to the Bankhead on Sunday, May 12th at 3 p.m. to watch this charismatic and fun performance.
And you
Have
can
a good
get
day.
tickets online at
livermorearts.org, or you can call our box office at 925-373-6800. Thanks, Chris. I forgot.
You got it.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.